Radio in motion. Program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, ready, here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight. Definitely trouble tonight. Kicking it off there with AC/DC, Lenny Kravitz, Ram Jam. So you know that's sort of the vibe tonight, and that's how I'm feeling. Definitely feeling that rock feeling tonight. But first up, we're gonna have another episode of The Ugly Truth. And I wanted to talk a bit about, if you haven't heard, The Tonight Show and Jimmy Kimmel. Apparently, he was suspended indefinitely. And these were for some remarks. I call it a misplaced bad joke with some political leanings, with a joke about a Charlie Kirk, who was recently murdered in America. But as I was taking these notes and all ready for the show, I heard this morning that apparently he's back on the air. So I think we'll talk about that because that's interesting how they changed their position and maybe why they did. But either way, I think it's an important topic to talk about because if you've listened to me recently, I've had a few episodes on freedom of speech and how I think people take that for granted, and there's a fine line between people deciding or governments deciding and labeling things, hate speech. Unfortunately. Like I say, speech is speech, and if you want to defend free speech, you have to even defend the speech you don't like, and that's the hardest part, isn't it? You just have to make sure your voice is louder and that your conviction and you're passionate, and it's not about canceling the other person and shutting them down. You just have to work harder. But before I talk about Jimmy Kimmel, just a bit about sort of where this started. If anyone has not been keeping up with the news, I'll let you know that Charlie Kirk, someone who is very outspoken and always open for a good, respectful, and peaceful debate. And as I say, don't listen to me. Look these things up for yourself. For all those who immediately are triggered and for those who speak before they think, I think there's a lot going around these days where we don't see each other as human first. We just go for whatever we've seen on social media and we hit back based on that. But regardless of how anyone felt about his personal point of view, which he is certainly allowed to have, especially if all he's doing is having open, respectful debates with others, and their position may be different, and you can agree to disagree and walk away friends. In no way, shape, or form should you be silenced for that, and in no way, shape, or form should you be killed for that. He's certainly not the first one in history, but I do hope it's starting to be one of the last. So Charlie Kirk was killed while on campus at one of these debates, where people from all sides, no matter their political view, no matter their opinion, came to see him, hear his thoughts, maybe give theirs. And again, I don't think anyone left angry. But his memorial was yesterday, and I just think it's interesting to note, no matter what you think of him, or if you don't know who he is, over 200,000 people showed up to that memorial that was in Glendale, Arizona, and filled the stadium. And his wife, Erica, really had some very meaningful things to say. And, she, sadly, she was standing behind a bulletproof glass. I can't believe that's where we're at. Although I did think back to when I was a kid, when the Pope at the time, I think it was Pope John Paul II, I'm not sure, I might be wrong, when he did a tour of America, this was in the 80s, everyone made fun of the Pope Mobile that he rode around in. Well, yeah, obviously it would have been a very protected, bulletproof little Pope Mobile car. So, look, that's nothing new. It is sad, though. But, and Donald Trump spoke, and as you would imagine. But I think the interesting thing is as she was speaking, and she's going to be taking over his corporation, which is Turning Point USA, which again is for anyone to come to when they need help and they just need support and somewhere to turn to. And look, like I said, sometimes you think you've gotten rid of that person by canceling them, and the ultimate cancellation, taking their life, you've actually created a martyr and a wildfire, because now not only is his wife going to take up that mantle, but many other people are going to just continue his cause. So that didn't work. But she said something, and they're Christian. I don't know when being Christian became a bad word. I feel like there's so many other religions. I don't want to get too deep into that. There's so many religions that we are forced to accommodate. You must accommodate this, or you're a racist, you're a bastard. But when you say Christian or Catholic, they go, oh, they're all kooks. That right there is despicable. To say, one religion is okay and another one isn't. You either accept them all or accept none of them. Maybe it's your thing or not, but she is Christian. And she said, look, even though this is a difficult thing to do, I forgive the young man, again, alleged killer, because that's a whole nother story where I don't think anyone's quite sure. But either way, she forgave him. And that's intense, because I don't think a lot of people would be able to do that. I think a lot of people would immediately have vengeance. That's a fact. Maybe down the road you'd have some forgiveness, but I think most would immediately have a sense of anger and vengeance before they forgave a person who took the life of a loved one. So yeah, that was a pretty moving moment. So again, that's Charlie Kirk. That's what's happening in the U.S. right now. Very divisive, but again, a lot of emotions going on. And so we turn to Jimmy Kimmel and The Tonight Show. Now, first I'm going to say, as I am a huge proponent of free speech, I don't believe in canceling anyone for their opinion. I especially believe that comedy and satire is a huge part of free speech. They are satire are critical tools of free expression, is the best way I can put it. They shouldn't be policed by political or corporate interests, but they are. That's nothing new. I'll get into that in a minute. That's nothing new. But really, politics is downstream of culture, and usually, a good comedian finds that right balance of making fun, I think, of everyone, and that's the key. And that's what I always say about comedy. That's why, again, the whole cancel culture and everyone's so triggered for making fun of. The fact is the human experience is funny. Humanity is funny. From a tall guy to a short guy to a fat guy to a skinny guy, of any color, of any gender, we are all just hilarious comedy of errors. And again, I think you get into a world of complicated, watch over of the government when you start policing comedy. So yes, first of all, I believe comedy is protected like anything else. You can't take a joke. And satire, is often the truest reflection of culture. And I remember late night comedy a little bit different. If you're a bit younger and you don't remember, Jimmy Kimmel inherited The Tonight Show. That is nothing new. the days of Johnny Carson or David Letterman or Jay Leno, frankly, I couldn't tell you what their politics were. I have no idea. I could care less because they didn't bring that to the show. Maybe some comedians who were on the show did, but as the host of the show, I think they were always able to keep a pretty good balance or keeping that out of it. Again, I'm not saying political comedy is wrong, but I'm just saying when you get down that road of first having a political leaning and then you throw comedy into it, you're not really just doing pure comedy. It's no longer sort of unbiased. So the Tonight Show has a long running of being the late night show entertainment for people. That was just a good, lighthearted laugh. And I do think that's changed over a while. Jimmy Kimmel, again, he was suspended for a joke he made about the killer of Charlie Kirk. But as I said, he's now apparently back on the air. But let's talk about how we got here. I don't think this happened overnight. If he was, the show was taken off the air. I feel like, the ratings have been declining for years. Okay, that's a fact. You can look that up. And ABC is owned by Disney. Again, this is a privately held company. Okay, we'll talk about, there was some tweet from the FCC that the government, and that's government run, that they pressured to get it off the air. No, let's not get complicated. That was just a ridiculous tweet that guy made. The fact is Disney can do what they want. If they're not making the money, they can pull a show. That is a business decision based on audience response and advertiser interest. Let's be honest. This isn't public television. This isn't PBS. And in Australia, funny enough, ABC is the public television station, or BBC. In the US, it's PBS, Public Broadcasting System. That's different. If you want to get your news from them, that's great. Then that means you believe everyone in government is telling the truth. So good job there. More power to you. But Disney is a capitalist company, and their job is to make money. So, if they wanted to pull the show, could have been for a lot of reasons. This was just coincidental timing, the bad joke. Also, I'm going to say, before you think, I just defended comedy, but should a TV show like that is reaching millions and may have sway over people's opinions, should they at least be careful about the jokes they do? Should it be policed? Well, the fact is that's nothing new, okay? Let's be honest. Every comedian who's ever been on The Tonight Show or David Letterman or any show in the past, you don't think that their whole gig wasn't heavily vetted before they went on? Of course it was. The producers, the writers of the show had to approve. There's no way they would let a comedian go out and say, all right, they have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm going to go nuts. And I don't just mean something like swearing or inappropriate words, which is also part of it. They certainly would never go on the air without pre-approval. So that already happens. There is no completely pure comedy. If you want to see a comedian's completely raw show, you pay for it. That's different. The comedian's venue, whoever's backing them, whoever advertising is attached with them, or maybe it's their own money, they have that private space. You've paid your money, you come in. Now that comedian will say whatever he wants. I hope. At least that's what I feel in my heart. That's a true comedy club. But late night TV, you're already going to be policed. And if you're the host of the show, of course, all the writers, everything is being policed already. And I also want to say again, this is when I thought that his show was canceled, which it was. I feel like a lot on the left, and again, I've talked about this before, I don't think it's right or left. I really do think it's, those with power and all of us, and they love us divided. But sadly, it does come down to left or right sometimes. But the left, they were outraged that Kimmel was taken off the air and being silenced. But let's go back a bit. Roseanne Barr was fired from her own show for some comments she made. And and nobody cared. They were happy with that. Gina Carano, who was in the Star Wars TV show, The Mandalorian, and everyone loved that character. And they're like, yeah, this is a hit. She's definitely going to be signed up for the next one. She just put her opinion on Twitter. Again, it was an opinion. It wasn't hate speech. It wasn't something horrible. It was an opinion. And unfortunately, it got into the political realm. And Disney fired her. And you know the funny thing about that? She sued Disney. And guess what? She actually won. So just keep those things in mind, that there was no outrage when someone maybe who was a bit right-leaning was canceled. But when Jimmy Kimmel's taken off the air, everyone goes nuts. So again, and the Jimmy Kimmel joke, it wasn't even that funny. I don't even think it was that bad. It's just interesting that everyone thinks, oh, it was just because of that. I think it was all these things. The ratings are declining. There's so many people involved. There's big money involved. There's big advertising involved. The news, mainstream media, as well as late night, just remember they're one and the same, okay? Remember that. Entertainment. Late night TV has advertisers. All the big pharma, all the food advertisers, McDonald's, all that. So does the news, folks. So remember that. Put those two together, and you decide if you think there's influence there, that the advertisers hold sway over what goes on and what doesn't. But, as a primetime show, Kimmel's writers and producers, they do carry cultural influence. So this is where you can say, oh, so you don't just purely defend comedy and free speech. I do. I'm just asking the question. That's what I do. I ask the question. Should there be any sort of thought into what kind of jokes? Or, as I said, should there be an effort towards balanced satire? Yes, I do believe that. Like I said, I have no idea what Johnny Carson or David Letterman's politics were. But I feel most of the jokes could go either way, or they wouldn't heavily lean in one direction. And by the way, if you don't know, I assume most people know, Jimmy Kimmel only leans in one direction, which is complete hate specifically for Donald Trump. Again, I don't like or hate Donald Trump. Really don't care if you do either. He's just the current president. There'll be another one soon, okay? But for the past, since the first Donald Trump presidency, and that's a long time, the Jimmy Kimmel show, it's boring. I don't even watch it. The whole thing, the whole opening monologue, it's guaranteed. It's like you could play them all for the past 100 episodes or more, all back to back. It's the same thing. It's only jokes about Trump. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's so that there's no balanced satire. It's only one. It's the Donald Trump hate show. That gets boring, I think. And that's also why, like I say, if the people decided this via ratings, if the people don't watch and don't tune in, then Disney cancels the show because they don't make money. And I tell you, if he's back on the air, I still think he's getting close because the ratings are crap. So yeah, it's not balanced. Or like I say, is comedy now just a vehicle for an ideological message? Yeah, when it comes to the Tonight Show, I'm sorry, I think it is. When every single opening monologue is only about one thing, and whether you say, oh, it's just a joke, you said it's just a joke, get over it. A one-off and a balanced joke, especially in the world of politics, make fun of this guy, make fun of this girl, make fun of on both sides. The whole human experience is funny. But it is interesting when you target one person for 10 years. It's no longer balanced satire. It's just it's a political message at that point. That's the other thing too. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel's funny. I think his jokes are written only to be a political message, and it stops being a light late night comedy show and it starts being Bill Maher. And I think Bill Maher is funny. I like Bill Maher. And he says, he didn't move. He still left, but some of the left went too far. Now he looks like he's in the middle, but he didn't move. So again, he is a self-proclaimed, political satire show. Okay, that's different. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he knows his audience. He gets good ratings. So yeah, if you don't believe again that there is censorship. There's always censorship. Let's not forget the days of COVID, the lab leak, and vaccine effectiveness. God knows you can't say the vaccine wasn't effective. Thankfully, you can say it a bit more today. But lockdown policies, all of those topics. Again, look this up yourself. Now, it was proven that on Twitter and Facebook, they were actively suppressed. Okay. Because they were, dissenting views that went against what the narrative was. That's not freedom of speech. Even if it were a joke or something in passing or comedy, people were canceled for that. So that's nothing new. Again, I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just giving you hard questions to remember. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel should have been surprised, because these things happen to the other political side constantly for many years now, and no one cares. So again, Jimmy Kimmel, he made this joke. He mentioned something about the shooter. It was actually really a MAGA supporter, Make America Great Again, which means he was just a lunatic from the right, all set up. And then it had a punchline, which actually was kind of funny. Went to a video of Trump, who was commenting on Charlie Kirk. And then he mentioned something about, you can see we're fixing up the ballroom in the White House. I don't do a good Trump, so I can't do it. We're fixing up the ballroom in the White House. It's taken many years. And so Kimmel made a joke, oh yes, he's in the next stage of grief, which is, the ballroom stage. Look, it's Trump. He's the president. He's all about a big show. So he can pivot from one conversation, one topic to another. But it's because he threw in the very sensitive topic about the Charlie Kirk murder. And everyone says, oh, so he was canceled for that, canceled for a joke. Oh, so that's how it is. Like I say, are you that surprised? Because it's already been happening to so many other outspoken, not just comedians, very prominent people in Hollywood who were on the wrong side of it. To this day, they're sort of getting silenced to this day. So I think it was the culmination of a lot of those things, and I thought his show was going to be canceled. Again, it's not just Disney behind it. There's all the affiliates. There's big companies, cable companies, big money, and they weren't sure. They were on the fence. So, they made that decision. By the way, that was a tough decision to make. It wasn't easy. Again, Disney had to decide. This is, millions of dollars on the line here. So he was canceled indefinitely. Well, apparently, like I say, recently I found out, it looks like he's back. The official sort of word is, ABC or Disney have been in talks with Kimmel about the situation. And again, I do think all he had to really do was make a statement, whether he wanted to apologize or not. If he didn't want to apologize, at least address it. But again, this is only, hearsay. Maybe he'll tell us on the show. I don't think he wanted to do that, but again, we'll find out. But I think that would have made it a little bit easier to just address it rather than say, no, I'm standing by it. I'm going to double down. But I still feel like the people have already decided, and the audience, they voted with their remotes and the ratings have dropped. That says more than any censorship could. I really don't think anyone's watching late night in general. I'm sorry. I think they're all moving to other platforms, YouTube and Twitter. And again, late night show is meant to be just something you put on in the background and listen to and fall asleep to. I don't think it's the place for heavy political satire, which is, again, it's not political satire because usually that is evenly distributed against every politician. Make fun of them all. That's how I would do it. Make fun of government in general, all of them, 100%. Are they all corrupt? 98% of them, yes. Sorry. That's based on facts, and that's funny. But when you pick just one side, it gets old. So again, my final thought is, am I surprised he's back on the air? No. I think Jimmy Kimmel and all those around him and possibly supporters we don't even know about and the huge Hollywood machine, I think he has a lot of power around him. And I'm sure when he had that discussion, I'm sure he holds some sway. And as much as maybe there are advertisers who are dropping, maybe others were saying, we won't advertise with you until he gets back. You see? So everything's so divided. And this is what makes me sad again. I've talked about this before. It's just a circus, folks. Give them bread and circuses, and the people will never revolt. That's it. They just want to keep us at each other's throats and divided, even on little things like this. And yes, I fell for it too. When I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, they finally got rid of Kimmel, and why? What happened? I'm so worried about this, and so worried about what people on the left are saying, and to be honest, it's just meant to divide us and keep us talking about such silly things. We all need to talk openly about media, about speech, comedy, and truth. They're all intertwined. I said at the start, I defended freedom of speech at all costs, especially in the realm of comedy and satire. But should we talk about maybe how we do that, and to certain platforms or celebrities, or obviously someone like the president? Look, that's a whole different thing. Obviously, the president or premier or anyone who has such power like that, well, their speech has gone over with a fine-tooth comb. And they're not usually out there cracking jokes. Trump is a different story. But should the average comedian be censored? No. Should someone on a late-night show who reaches millions at least think about making sure to be a little bit more balanced? Yes, that's the one thing I'll say. So that's not me going against my free speech at all costs. That's me making the show at least more accessible to everyone, rather than alienating literally half the country. And again, around the world, that's even more complicated. I think the world itself is also divided, but the U.S. is definitely, absolutely divided. And that's pointless, because we should be working together. Let's stop pretending that this is about one joke. I think it's about, a broader discussion that we should all be having, in that we have more in common than we think. And I've said this before too. I look out the window, I don't see everybody at each other's throats. I don't see, conservative or liberal or Democrat or Republican, left to right, whatever. I don't see that. I just see people going to work, people raising children, people trying to make good money for their family. And in the middle of it all, I think we should always be able to have an open, respectful, and peaceful conversation. And that's what I enjoy the most. And if we keep that open, if all of the people, millions, billions, keep that mentality open, then we won't lose. And who are we fighting against? Well, again, I've told you who we're fighting against. We are fighting against the oligarchy, the few, the billionaires, trillionaires, the faceless. You have no idea. Again, look this up yourself. If you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, if you don't believe there are those that want to make sure that all of our finite resources, that we only have a piece of it, do you wonder why big companies buy up so much real estate? They buy up water rights. They want to make sure they find a way to manufacture your food, so you're eating synthetic meat. They don't want you growing vegetables. They don't want you to have a community or a farm. Oh my God, that's horrible and illegal. And can you see the writing on the wall? Aren't you a little bit worried about that? That's why I say the most powerful thing you have is how you decide to be with your family, your friends, your community, your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. Your community, your town, support the small businesses in your town. And if everyone like that is strong together, then there's nothing they can take from you. And when it comes to media, look, it's just a bit of fun. Don't take it so seriously. And hey, to Jimmy Kimmel, I say, now that you're back and you were almost canceled, and if you want to be on the air, if you still want that job, if you want to give your opinion to millions of people, just consider having some jokes that are a bit more balanced and not being so triggered and fierce and so focused in a very unhealthy way on one person. And maybe your show's ratings might go up a bit, and Disney won't keep in the back of their mind that they still might axe your show. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Very interesting. Thanks for joining me tonight. More great music coming up on the rest of our Tuesday Night Trouble on Radio in Motion. And we'll be right back after a word from our awesome sponsors.